10 years ago, the Belgian city of Ghent is Ghent. In 2010, traffic reached its peak and air quality was becoming a growing concern. There are too many cars in the city center. The city realizes that many drivers don't have their destination in the city. They are just passing through. Streets are getting crowded, traffic is slow, and public space is under pressure. In times like these, cities often invest to additional car infrastructure. It's expensive, some residents are not too happy about it, but politically, kind of easier. But Ghent is choosing a different path. They are coming up with a plan. They call it the circulation plan, a traffic system that aims to reduce car traffic in the city center by eliminating through traffic, so the city would feel calmer and more safe. The idea is simple. The inner city is divided into 7 sectors, including a pedestrian zone in the middle. These sectors are divided by roadblocks or cameras. Car drivers can enter each sector only from the ring road. So if they need to go from the blue sector to the green sector, first they need to get out to the ring road and use it to go around and then enter the green sector from this ring road. This rule applies to all motor vehicles with some exceptions. On the other hand, pedestrians, cyclists, public transport and emergency vehicles can move freely around the city. Important to say is that the circulation plan didn't happen in isolation. Major traffic changes began long before 2017. Let's make a quick dive into history. In 1993, the city adopted its first cycling plan, identifying main bike corridors and starting long-term investment in cycling infrastructure. It was pushed by the then deputy mayor Frank Beke, who got the nickname Frank Bike Beke afterwards. In 1997, things got interesting. A mobility plan created a large pedestrian zone in a city center. Cars were no longer allowed to drive through this area, and access was limited only to residents and deliveries. The resistance was fierce. Back in the 90s, this change was so controversial that the vice mayor of the time even received a bullet in the envelope and required a police protection. Between 2000 and 2016, the city population grew by 15%, bringing more cars and more pressure on the public space. Congestion and through traffic were again major problems. Drivers were circling the city, searching for a free parking space. So, in 2016, the city introduced a new parking plan. Paid parking zones were expanded, prices increased closer to the center, and residents received free parking permits. The goal was to reduce unnecessary car traffic searching for parking. The implementation of the circulation plan itself began in April 2017. On streets that once connected different parts of the city, modal filters were introduced. Some are enforced by physical barriers, like bollards, concrete blocks, or big flower pots. These are only in places where no public transport needs to cross. Others are not physically blocked, but they are marked with red stripes on the road, so drivers know they cannot pass here. These are guarded by automatic camera systems. If they detect an unauthorized crossing, they read the plate number and issue a fine. At the time of implementation, there were recorded some 150 illegal crossings per day. But as of today, the number of illegal border crossings had decreased to approximately 11 per day. Once the through traffic disappeared, many of these streets were redesigned as small public spaces. The circulation plan concept was actually not entirely new. A similar approach had been introduced decades earlier in the Dutch city of Groningen. For dividing sectors, that system mostly used one-way streets. While in Ghent, the idea was applied on a bigger scale, with modal filters that blocked the passage for cars. Traffic changes in Ghent, although being quite significant, didn't need major constructions. The whole circulation plan cost only about 5 to 6 million euro for the whole inner city and was largely introduced in a single weekend. And now, some numbers. What they actually achieved over the following years. More than half of the through traffic disappeared. Car ownership declined, from around 1.25 cars per household to only 1.0. At the same time, car sharing expanded. Thanks to this change, many on-street parkings could be removed, freeing up room to redesign the streets. Many. I mean, they went down from 44,000 parking spaces to only 37,000 parking spaces. That's a big change. Then what's interesting is that the traffic actually got faster. Despite longer and more complicated routes for some drivers, average time to travel to the city center decreased because of lower traffic and fewer traffic jams. Many people switched to bikes in the city center, saying Ghent had become a paradise for pedestrians and cyclists. On the other hand, travel time on the ring road increased a little, and people commuting out of Ghent felt like the city had become less accessible for cars. After the changes, the modal share of trips inside the city changed significantly. Share of cars in traffic fell and share of bikes increased, bringing cycling close to car use in modal share. It's hard to believe this is possible, like if you live in some North American city where modal share of cars is some 90%. What was interesting that the shops in the center were assumed to suffer because of the traffic changes, but the result was balanced. About the negative effects, in survey 44% of residents said they purchased less goods in Ghent, with the main reason being more difficult accessibility with a car followed by expensive parking. This was even more pronounced with residents of neighboring municipalities who find it more difficult to travel to Ghent with a car. Important to say is that this doesn't necessarily correlate with total spendings in shops and their survivability. It could also mean doing larger shoppings less often, switching to e-commerce, or shopping outside of Ghent. On the other hand, these changes appear to have a positive impact on number of businesses in the city center. After the changes, startups increased by some 20%, and number of bankruptcies decreased by some 7%. So, politically, this process was highly controversial. The person behind these changes was the deputy mayor Filipc. He mentions that the plan was in preparation already from 2014. During that time, a resistance built up, which became rough, including all the yelling and shouting. Mr. Vatiev even received death threats and was few weeks under police surveillance. These threats also included his family. His strategy was to talk to as many people as possible, to explain and understand. City officials even started small community meetings, sometimes even visiting residents in their own living rooms, so they can get a good feedback to the project. By 2017, the circulation plan already started to show its effects. City traffic was changing, streets were calmer, and public space was reclaiming life. But the moment that captured the spirit of the change came on April the 3rd in 2017. Vice Mayor Filip Vatiev was asked by a journalist to have a cycle tour around Ghent together. Mr. Vatiev was worried this could be risky because of all the opposition. If someone at the crossroad will start yelling at me, insulting me or threatening me, it would be on the front page of the newspaper. After a moment of doubt, he said, "Let's go," and they rode through the city. Instead of anger, people smiled, gave thumbs up and said thank you. He later wondered where all this support had been when it looked like everyone was against the changes. At the end, the journalist even asked if all this had been staged because they only met supportive people. But it hadn't. It revealed that many supporters had been there the whole time, quietly, even in the years when it seemed like they didn't exist. According to Mr. Vatiev, nowadays majority people are in favor of the circulation plan. It had remained in place even after the following elections, and its architect, the mobility vice mayor Filip Vatiev, continued in office. The key question was never if cars belong to the city, but where driving should be efficient and where it should not.